Technology is supposed to be here to make our lives easier, right? But sometimes it seems like the more technology we have and the more tools we get, the more complicated our day-to-day management of life becomes. And this is why I've come up with this idea of a digital deep clean. Now, a digital deep clean is a little different than a decluttering, and I'll show you what that means as we go through this deck. But I'm going to first walk you through some of the basic functions of the internet that lead to us getting tangled in the first place. And the first thing I want to talk to you about is the infrastructure and ecosystems that make up the internet as we know it today. When I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about four main categories of things. Your hardware devices, which is, your computer, your phone, your smart speaker, your biometric tracking device. And then we have software and apps in the cloud. And these are different versions of programming code that give instructions to the applications that you're using. And the final piece is your data. And the data is the information that runs through this software to allow you to do the different tasks that you're doing on the internet. Now, there's also this concept of technology ecosystems. And what I mean by that is there are companies, corporations that have all of these infrastructure pieces and they're tied into their own ecosystem. And you'll recognize these as I click through them. We've got Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and there's some other smaller ones out there. So how do we as end users participate in the internet and with these infrastructure pieces and these ecosystems? Typically, we don't make a choice. Oh, I'm going to use this ecosystem. We buy a device that belongs to an ecosystem, or we're handed a device at our job or our school, and that device comes preloaded with the software and the apps that will be used inside of that, right? Those pieces belong to the ecosystem just like the device does. We use our information, our data, to create our accounts, and the ecosystem which this device and the software and apps on it get our data, which means the companies that run those ecosystems have our data, right? Now let's go to the other side of the equation. Who is using the internet, how, and why, right? So we've got a couple main players. We've got people, you and me, tech users, and we have companies who are tech providers. And some of us may span the gap between these two and be users of the internet and also work in the production of the tech that is used on the internet. What do we use this technology and the internet for? I'm going to call these things games, but they're really tasks, and I've broken it down into 5 categories. We've got the connection game, the logistics game, the story game, the hustle game, and the belonging game. And as you can see by just scanning over those, the details under each of those games, most of the things we're doing on the internet have to do with these games, right? Okay, groundwork is laid. We've got the infrastructure, we've got the ecosystem, we've got the players, and we've got the games. How does this work? Well, the companies make the technology and the devices that we're using. They give it to us or they sell it to us. Typically we buy our devices, but a lot of times apps are free, right? But are they really free? What's happening is that the companies behind the ecosystems are collecting the data, and then they're using that data to market to us to sell more products and services. Cool, right? The thing about this is that we're going to go into how it gets tangled and why it can get tangled because of the logic explained into this third point here about collecting data and using it to make money. So what happens is that we'll get a device, and I'm just going to use the example of phones in this example. Apple phones, Android phones. Yes, there is a Windows phone. I know you've probably never seen it before. When we get a new device, it comes preloaded, like I said, with the apps from its own ecosystem and with the software from its own ecosystem. The iOS or the operating system behind it comes from that ecosystem. And these apps have little icons, right? You may recognize the icons that you're using. Yeah, nobody really uses this Windows phone. There's a long story behind that, but I'm not going to get into it here. But if we use the default apps that come with our devices and their default settings, we are opting in to the ecosystem whether we realize it or not. And these apps say that they can play together nicely, right? They say that, oh, you can use Google, you can surface your Gmail through your Apple Mail on your phone. You can sync your Google Calendar with your iPhone, right? And it's true. But once you start adding in other devices, other ecosystems, and tools that actually exist on their own in that other category, like for example, Zoom, right? When you start doing this is where the trouble starts, because there is an incentive for each of those ecosystems to keep you within the walls of what they offer. So they say, oh, well, we can sync these applications together, no problem, right? And then you update your device or you update your operating system, right? And things start to get chaotic, right? You're not sure. You're maybe missing calls, or you're missing events on your calendars, or things are dropping, or it's not consistent. And pretty soon we enter into this state of tech overwhelm, right? And the tech overwhelm comes from, in large part, the tangles between these different ecosystems that we didn't realize we've created, right? And now there's even more apps out there, right? There's apps that sync between other apps. And I just grabbed a couple screenshots. Green bubbles and blue bubbles being friends. That's Android's and Apple's messaging system. We got sync your Outlook calendar with your iPhone. Outlook, not my favorite, right? What if you want to sync your Zoom to your Google Calendar or your iCalendar, or you want to try and sync things between your computer or your phone, and you've got different versions of the operating system, right? Very quickly you can see how this pulls into more of this tangle that I'm talking about. And as the internet evolves and there's more and more questionable players out there, and the security tightens, and the more and more security and privacy concerns come up, the more tangled the whole thing gets, right? And so tangled apps equal tech overwhelm. And this is the impetus for this whole presentation, right? When you don't consciously choose your tech and you don't realize perhaps that you've done this ecosystem crossing thing, it can have a really strong negative effect on your experience, because you think you're getting this beautiful web to weave the world with. And then it gets tangled and suddenly it's not working properly. And then you're looking at this tangle and you're going, oh my gosh, what happened here? And then your head starts to feel tangled. And at the very beginning, I said tech is here to serve us. And if we're not aware of how we're creating this tech overwhelm, it can become a challenge for us, right? So are you ready to untangle this mess? This is where this digital deep clean comes in, right? And as I mentioned, there's digital decluttering, which is a kind of a surface level clean. It's like tidying up your email by adding filters, or perhaps giving yourself reminders on your phone when something pops up on your calendar. And it's a really important skill to learn how to declutter your stuff. But when we're talking about a digital deep clean, I'm talking about taking this fundamental cross ecosystem problem, this tangle of frustration that you're seeing here, and going through a number of very simple steps to start to recognize the tangle, start to untangle it, and then start to put this technology back in service to what you signed up for it for in the first place, right? And you can do your own tech ecosystem audit. It's so simple, it's going to take one slide, and I'll show you how to do it in 3 simple steps. First, I want you to take a piece of paper out, or a note, or whatever app you use, and list out all of your hardware devices. List out your phone, your computer, your desktop, your house technology, your Internet of Things technology. If you're using a smart fridge, or you're using tools that are outside of your actual computing devices, list them out and identify which tech ecosystem they belong to. And if you don't know, this is a great use for Google or ChatGPT. You can list out your device and it will tell you who created it. The second step is to go through and figure out which applications are you using on each of these main devices to complete each of your specific tasks. For example, which email are you using? Which calendar are you using? Which platforms are you using for which games, right? And when you start to realize that perhaps you are doing this thing where you're using multiple applications on different devices for the same reason, this is when the light bulb moment hits. The third part is you're going to choose one application for each task. And then you're going to standardize on that app across all of your devices. Now, word to the wise, I tried to do this the other day for a client who is using Apple hardware and Google messaging and Google admin, the Google Workspace suite. And I went on my computer and I went to the App Store and I went to download the Google apps for Mac, and it was not pretty. And so I advised her, instead of actually putting the app on your computer, maybe you're going to go through the browser and just log in that way. So there's some nuance to this. You're not going to get it right on the first try, but if you successfully go through these 3 steps, you're going to touch on a lot of the root causes of this technical tangle that causes overwhelm. And you're going to start to realize that maybe there's some unnecessary complexity in your systems that you can start to get rid of, right? I promise this will be fairly short. I know that's a deep topic we just touched on the surface of, but in quick review, you've got your hardware devices, you've got your ecosystem awareness, right? You've got this idea of, oh, there's a reason why this technology is different. You've got software and apps. Software is installed locally on your device, and an app is a tiny application that's installed on your device that's speaking to software that's running in the cloud. And you've got this option of standardizing tools. I hope this makes sense, because what it's time to do is it's time to untangle your digital world. The world is complex enough. We don't need technical glitches causing us more headaches. And when you start to take your technology from this massive tangle of confusion and snarled integrations, and you smooth it out and you start to make it run like the well-oiled machine it can be, you can truly start to put technology back in service to your life. Okay? Technology should serve our lives, not consume it. We as users can take back agency and not just be used by this technology. One of the fundamental questions I often ask myself when I'm dealing with tech is, am I using this technology, or is it really using me? And these principles and that question is one of the reasons why I founded the Webmaker Circle. My name is Kaya Tingley, by the way. I didn't introduce myself. I'm Kaya Tingley. I'm founder and Chief Technical Officer at the Webmaker Circle. And this is our mission, is to put technology back in service to life, because these tools are amazing. But it's only when we choose to take the agency and learn about how to use them properly that they can reach their fullest potential. Thank you so much for taking time to sit through this and look at this information. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can get a hold of us on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter where we put out information about how to use the internet better to put technology back in service to life. Or you can follow us over on LinkedIn at the Webmaker Circle. I hope this helps, and good luck to you. May you use technology for all the things you dream of.